Hey everybody, it's Rob here. I've heard a lot of talk in my comment section on YouTube, on Twitch. A lot of people have talked about the current balance stage of the game after I've shown this sort of like end game Barbarian that I have been playing in the pre-launch version of Diablo 4. And today I just wanted to share with you some of my thoughts about all of this. So let's get into it. In the background here, you have some of the footage that I recorded, sort of, when I wasn't as optimized. So this is footage of me trying, the higher nightmare dungeons for the very early stages, basically. I just hit 100. I was trying to push for 100. I didn't have the 100 key yet, so I was playing Nightmare Dungeons in the 90, and my build just wasn't as good, not as optimized. So you see here, this is a level 94 Nightmare Dungeon. And I want to showcase this video today because in this dungeon, I don't dominate as much as I did in that 100 dungeon later. I'm struggling way more here, and as my build just wasn't as optimized. So there's definitely a lot of sides to this balance aspect of the end game. And you can see here I'm doing decent damage, but this is like 6 tiers lower, and I'm still taking a lot of damage myself. So I'm just sort of trying to kill those elites here. And as you watch the footage, I just want to talk a bit more just about the general state of things, because maybe the buff will get nerfed, maybe not. We will see what the developers decide. But the big problem and misconception that I see here is that there's not really been many other videos that have been made about really end game characters. Most of the footage I've seen, was from people about level 50 to level 70. So there was not really any footage that I've seen that was really a full end game character. And I mean, I get that everybody focused on different things. I also tested a ton of mechanics. Was actually sitting down for 7 hours just testing damage mechanics on a tree before I could even min max the build until what you saw in that nightmare dungeon 100 clear. So it took me quite a while. And you see here I just getting one shot left and right whenever I the buff just has a couple frames downtime, and I'm really struggling and not dominating through this run. And I think it was pretty close at the end, basically. So yeah, we have this current balance stage, and nobody really knows what's going to happen. But what I just want to ask people is not to judge the class balance too early before we've even seen the game. So I'm pretty sure, and I've played some sorcerer, that all the classes can be min-maxed to a certain level. Now I don't know if all the classes will be equally at the end. Obviously that would be ideal, but that's going to be very hard to achieve and probably going to take several months. But I'm certain if there is people, and we will see this in about 10 days from now when the game is out for 10 days, that other classes will be min-maxed as well to this degree that I have done it on the Barb. And I mean, this is definitely not the final stage of the Barbarian by any means. There's different builds, there's other strengths, other weaknesses for a lot of stuff. But I'm pretty sure that every class in the end will have some sort of build that really scales well. I know, for example, the sorcerer has one build that is revolved around the shatter passive, which is basically some enhanced area damage from Diablo 3 that even can proc itself again. So the shatter passive is extremely insane in every AoE scenario if you're playing a sorcerer, for example, in the end game, or even early on. And I'm pretty sure other classes have that as well. And I feel like the Barb needs this kind of toughness buffs, because he always needs to be very close to the enemy and basically in melee range at all times. The only build kind of on Barb that I played that does not require you to be in melee range is the Upheaval. You've also seen I had videos up from the Server Slam and the early betas where I was playing Upheaval on level 20 and 25 and already hitting in for 500,000. But they have really nerfed this build by about damage divided by 10, and now here in this endgame it doesn't really feel, from my testing at least, and from my benchmarks, that it has a lot of impact again. But it's kind of sad, but it was also maybe a bit too strong in the start. But I feel like it just got nerfed a bit too heavily. But we'll see how the balance is gonna go long term. Maybe there are some mechanics that I didn't figure out, and it's actually like a GG build as well. But yeah, we'll see about that. Not every build has to be end game viable, I guess. There's also like these fun favorite builds. Like I've shown you the Thorns Barb, which could very well go into end game because there's a lot of stuff to min-max and a lot of mechanics to figure out. But just for now, I felt like Upheaval is definitely on the weaker side after the nerfs. But it still makes for kind of unique Barbarian build because you can play like some, not fully ranged, but like kind of like mid-ranged all the time. So that's a pretty cool sight to see. Maybe there's somebody that can make it like work, but from my testing, at least, the Upheaval was right now the weakest of the 5 core skills that the Barbarian has. And on the Barb, like most of the builds really revolve around the core skills. Just I feel because there's just a lot of multipliers, especially with the Unbridled Rage and the core skills, damage that you can get on your weapons. But yeah, coming back to the balance state, like you can really see here, I'm like kind of struggling like against these elites. Like there's many elites in these nightmare dungeons, and I'm really trying to stay alive. And I definitely realized that the Gohr Gloves that caused this explosion that you've just seen here, for like the accumulated damage of the Whirlwind, are definitely quite a bit on the stronger side. And I can't really speak for the other classes, with the exception of maybe Wizard. Again, if they have similar items, I've not seen any class that has been optimized on level 100 in the end game. So it's hard for me, to compare it. And I think for all of you guys, like all you've seen is this Barb on level 100. And yeah, we don't know how a level 100 sorceress or rogue or necro or druid, for that matter, with like fully decked out gear and like a well thought build that is like min-max, that basically has all the multipliers needed. When you understand all the mechanics, like how does the vulnerable scale, it's a separate multiplier, like how does the crit work, how does attack speed scale, like does attack speed even affect your damage, which in Whirlwind's case attack speed doesn't affect the damage that you do with Whirlwind, and it doesn't affect the tick rate and stuff, at least from my testing. But there's just a lot of like nuances and mechanics to go into, and like I've already put in several hundred hours like theory crafting and playing into this Barbarian, and the result is what you could see in this 100 clear. And this here was a result that maybe was there like 5 to 10 hours before I cleared the 100, that it was not as optimized yet in terms of playstyle, in terms of the multipliers, and especially in terms of the stat rolls I have on my items. And this, it just doesn't like happen. You don't just go on a Barb, you slap on the items, and you instantly like crush the hardest content in the game. There's just a lot of like work, thought that went into this. And yeah, I think people like overvalue like what they the final result a little bit. Like it takes a long way to get there, and I think this is like also what makes Diablo 4 and just Diablo games in general, what brings a lot of the fun, like the sort of the way is the goal, like how you get there, and how you min-max your character. Like that's the fun there, like the way is the goal. And I think that's really cool to like never be done with your character. You always have something to improve, you always have some mechanic to figure out, or some paragon board to optimize, some extra stat to get on your item, some different stat, some higher stat to get, something to change in your gameplay. There's just so many things, some glyph to change. There's just so many things that go into it in Diablo 4, and I think it's fantastic. There's a lot of nuances, and there will probably be even more as the game ages here, with like more and more season themes coming, more and more mechanics coming into the game, more and more players figuring out stuff, how things work. Like one example on the Barb that I always talk about in my videos is the 1 point in the hamstring passive, which basically makes your bleed apply slow, and slow is a form of CC, which enables like a lot of other like damage buffs and multipliers and bonuses. And yeah, that's just like something that's just so strong, and I'm pretty sure like other classes will have this or some similar thing like that as well. And you can see here, like, this is not a breeze. Like, I'm really, like, you know, struggling to clear this tier. I've died 2 times already, and you see my life, like, dancing up, dancing down all the time. And again, this is a pretty decently optimized character. Not as good as in the 100 clear, but it's a fairly well-built character. I've put in a lot of thought, even prior, you know, before this access, pre-launch access version. I mean, you've seen the videos on my YouTube here. I put in, like, a lot of time, a lot of effort. I've been writing, I've been checking guides, I've been theory crafting, and it just you don't just go into the game and you put this on and it works instantly. Like, you have to think about what you do. And yeah, you see here, like, there's so many packs here, and I just, like, if I could just stay in. So, like, let's take the Sorcerer for an example. The Sorcerer has a skill, Flame Shield, that makes you completely immune. If I had that here, I could, like, literally just stand in there and, like, kill them every like, I don't know what the cooldown is. Like, let's say every 15 seconds, if you have cooldown reduction for 2 seconds, I can stand in anything. Like, I'm immortal. I can stand in anything that I want and, like, fully do my DPS. And Sorc has Shatter, which is, like, basically area damage times 10, and yeah, it's gonna be insane. Sorc also has a pixel pull with a unique chest and teleport, and I'm pretty sure, you know, if there's in 10 days when there's players that spend, like, you know, 100 hours on Sorc, that have good knowledge about the game, know what they're doing, like, I'm not pretty sure, you know, we're gonna see, like, sorcerers clear, like, you know, in the 90s, in the hundreds as well. And yeah, I'm just kind of running around here. Let me see if we can skip to the last part. I don't know if I die one more time. I think we are looking pretty good here on the clear time. But you see, it also, like, took me quite a while to clear this. Like, the 100, I cleared way faster when I, you know, min-maxed my build, got the right stat roads. So one thing that really improved my build, for example, is I didn't know at the time that, for example, Vulnerable, like, was a multiplier, and, like, damage while fortify and damage to healthy enemies is not a multiplier. So I was, like, stacking, like, different stats on my weapons, and then I realized, yeah, well, on all my weapons, I definitely want crit damage and vulnerable, and it increased my damage by a ton. So there's, like, all these little things that go into it as I clear this dungeon here. And yeah, there's the final boss, and yeah, then we cleared the dungeon here, basically, 94. And that's a huge map. We get to upgrade our gem. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, I'm going over the gear here real quick. It's somewhat similar, but, you know, we did min-max quite a bit after that. Especially in terms of, like, how we play, gameplay, like the pulls we make. Also the affixes that we play on the dungeon. Not sure if I went through them again. Maybe you could check at the start, but that's also really important. Like, I think in the end, you definitely wanna, you know, have some really good affixes there, and don't play the bad ones for your class. For example, there's a suppressor or suppression on some of the elites, some of the affixes, and that's gonna be really bad for a range class. But for a melee class, it almost doesn't matter, basically. But yeah, that's all I had to say for now. I just want people to keep an open mind and not to judge, you know, the balance of the game by looking at one class, but rather to take a step back and look at the big picture here. And yeah, I'll be happy to also play other classes. I'm definitely gonna make a sorceress. Like, I'm gonna blast my barb for 10 days on launch, and then I'm gonna make a sorceress. And my goal is also to clear the highest nightmare dungeon on a sorcerer. And I'm pretty sure it's gonna be possible. But we'll see about that. If you like the video, guys, leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe. I have a lot more videos coming, and I will be blasting pretty much the next 2 weeks. I have holidays, and I will be trying to be streaming every day and put out more content. We'll see. Rob over and out. See you soon.